Welcome back to What is Happiness, a channel where we explore everything to do with happiness. You're about to watch part 3 of my very first in-depth interview looking at the incredible journey to happiness from Doel. In part 1, we heard about Ian's very difficult journey to find himself and hitting some of life's lowest points on the way. In part 2, we saw how that journey had progressed as Ian challenged himself to be a better person and father, and we started to hear how he challenged himself physically to push himself on this journey. We're now in part 3 and we're going to pick up right where we left off. I hope you enjoy this final part. Please like, comment, follow, and subscribe if you do. You're watching What is Happiness, and welcome back to Ian Doel.
I just found that actually moving sportsman, my world opened up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's possibly a relationship I was in, because when you're with someone else or someone who's not sort of been in your world before, they bring other things. So there was a lot of other stuff that got brought into life, and I've always enjoyed the mad ones. I always enjoyed them. I've never done any of the Tough Mudder or anything like that. But there's a run locally called the Hell Runner.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be called the Hell Runner, it's not anymore. And that was just 10 to 12 miles of just absolute beasting around an army base in the middle of winter. Lots of water, lots of mud. And it was great fun. It was possibly the one thing I look forward to every year. I can remember I did it with a lad from work. And it was just madness. Why are we doing this to ourselves? And it was in fact, it was even before the Tough Mudder days. There were no runs like that around. It was just, you go along and you swim through this bog and, I've done it 5 or 6 times. And I got close to hypothermia one year because it was that cold. Cut all my ankles going through puddles because they were ice. Things like that. And it was like, this is what I love. I just love it. There's a real sort of...
extreme challenge, I imagine.
Beasting yourself and
right.
Seeing where you can be.
Wow.
About it. And then that led to sort of further triathlons, cycling events, and now into the world of running. I just enjoy outdoor running.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy running around in the sort of cross country and hills and things.
Mm-hmm.
And then
fascinating. Wow.
Led me to Wales. So
this has been such a already. Haven't got to the big question yet, but this has been such an edifying and interesting chat so far to hear how far you came in such a relatively short period of time, but you've hit some very severe episodes. With all the Ukraine-Russia crisis going on, I heard this really good headline that the last week was the week where decades happened. Right. And you probably had that time and time again, weeks where you felt like decades were happening, where you were going through so many stages. It's so interesting and motivating and uplifting to hear your journey. I don't know whether you ever realise that. I know taking praise as well as being something that you might struggle with, but that is so interesting and so organic and so real, what you went through in terms of all the branches that you hit on the way down, and then the way that you had to just claw together and figure out what your next steps were as you took them, and then doing things to do it. So moving as you needed to do and taking the steps forwards, just going into your local boxing gym.
And that was it. And even joining the gym was, I always describe it as sort of going home. I hadn't had a gym for a while. And I can remember walking in, and I think I only knew a couple of lads. So I knew Mario, because I know we discussed that the other day. And he was
Shout
like...
out Mario.
Yeah, hello Mario, there you are. And I was crapping it. I knew what the gym was, so obviously the whole MMA and kickboxing and stuff like that. I was crapping it. Nearly 40. I'm really stepping out of my comfort zone here. But solid, I love it.
Love that. Wow.
And it was just the one thing I loved about it most was everyone was pushing each other.
Yeah, each other. Yeah,
and it wasn't a case of we're pushing each other in a really how do I word this correctly? Really sort of arrogant, I'm better than you, I'm stronger than you, that sort of way. It was just, I'm going to push as hard as I can, and therefore I want you to push the same. And it was just that, right, well, if you can do that, I can do that.
Right.
And actually I'm going to take my age out of this, because I was a lot older than most. And I'm going to match everyone. And I'm not only going to match everyone, I want to go further. And then they put sort of challenges up on the boards about running and stuff, and it was like, no, cool, I want to be in that top.
Incredible.
Top here. So Yeah, that doesn't always work out as you get older.
Incredible. What you described there about the environment is so, you know, it's so intrinsic of any good martial arts gym. I just want to take a second and say that because I think that's so intrinsic in martial arts. But you're right, you can get gyms where you either, you know, full of meatheads or full of arrogance, full of overconfidence.
It was never about that. Oh, yeah, he's being a dick, or someone's trying to stitch you up. It was always we're looking after each other, but we are going to push.
Right. Yeah, and
that came from you guys, the instructors, and everything else. That was we are going to push, and it's going to be painful at times, but we're all going to get there.
Yeah. Now we're going to get to the big question, the whole purpose of why we met up, really.
Right.
And the question that a lot of what I'm trying to do with this channel and this project is trying to explore.
Yeah.
And it's a question I'm going to ask you, but I'd like you to answer it as if I was a toddler or an alien or had no concept of the word. And I'd like you to, as briefly or as lengthy as you'd like, explain to me, after that incredible journey that you've been on, what is happiness?
And it's a really tricky one because I describe it as a state. And when I say state, as in it's just where you are at a moment in time. And one thing I've sort of learned over the last few years is if you can return to a good state, and this is sort of what dragged me out of where I was, if I'm honest, if you can get to a good state, happy place, whatever, however you want to put that, if you can stay at that point, then you're always going to be right. So if you can always go to state, then you'll be fine. But that's how I would describe happiness. It's just naturally a feeling, naturally a state.
So you're describing it as almost like an equilibrium? Is that a fair word?
Where you're just on a level. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a happy level or a sad. It's just on a level that effectively anything that's going on in your world, nothing can affect you because you're just there. And I'm not sure that's how you could describe it to a child, but that's sort of how I would put it. You are in a good place, and anything that's going on in the world just sort of bounces off you a bit. Mm-hmm. So that's how I would describe it. I'm not sure that covers it.
It does. So, do you think an accurate word for that state is being content?
Yes.
How does that either differentiate or compete with being happy in the sense of elated and joyful and ecstatic about either life or things or people or your place? And how would you describe or advise how the two contend with each other?
So I think the happiness one and that sort of elation sort of thing, I think I'm possibly not the best person to ask because I don't get excited about much.
Okay, got you.
It's really weird. I get really excited about personal things. So small little achievements I get excited about. I'm not one of these people who celebrate wildly in public or anything like that. If anything, I'm generally quite understated, I think. You may think that.
No, I totally agree. Except for when we've had a few drinks.
That's another series. So I very much underplay everything until I'm in private, and then I can sort of sit and have that moment of cool. Now I'm happy, whether I've achieved what I've achieved or just for taking part. And I guess the first part was content, wasn't it? So I think, and this has taken me a long time, to be content where you are, regardless of what's going on. So even if it's the worst day going on, I think you can still be content with where you are, because, and the only way I say that, because that sounds backward, but I revert back to being in state. So if you can stop, even on your worst day, and go, okay, it's a crap day, but actually it's just a crap day. Nothing else has changed. The world's not ending. and even if this isn't going well, life generally is fine, and possibly because I've been through what I've been through, there's not much that's going to come up and go, wow, this is a problem. I hope not. So I can sort of now go, okay, fine, this is where I am. I know this is an external feeling or something that's coming into my world, and therefore I can just live in that place, knowing that actually I can still be really happy in that place, even if things aren't working out. So even if it's a bad day, I can still sort of go to bed and be cool. It's a good day. And I think that's quite important. And I think that's down to being more grateful for things, if I'm honest. I think that's the biggest one.
Gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude, being grateful. It may not be the best day. You could have a really crap day at work. You could go to the gym, I don't know, as we talked about it, go to a boxing class. You had a crap day at work, you've gone to do a session and it's not worked out how you wanted to. And then stepping back and going, actually, do you know what? I had a day at work, but I still get paid. It didn't work out where I wanted it to be, but fundamentally I did what I needed to do, and I'm going to get paid, which is why we all work. Okay, go to the gym. Again, didn't work out where I wanted it to be, but actually I'm fit enough to be able to walk into the class. I'm skilled enough to be able to walk into the class, be accepted as someone who, yes, we're allowing you in the class. And funny enough, after getting very beaten up, the one thing I found out was that I got to protect myself.
Right. You're not made of glass.
Yeah.
It's a big thing about boxing.
And I can take a bit of a beating. And although I thought, it's awful, it was actually, it's fine. And I think nearly realising that sort of made me stop a bit.
Right.
Well, what do I need to prove?
Right.
And it's not that I can knock someone out or vice versa. It's just, actually, I'm fine. And I can be comfortable in really being uncomfortable. Because I really wanted to clear the points. Male pride. So, but I think looking back and going, actually, I'm really grateful for today because, yes, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but I did this, this, and this. And I still sat here at the end of the day going, cool, it's been a good day. And I think if you can do that more than most, then I think nearly every day is a good day. I think it's important.
I think you've hit a nail on the head there. Wow. So just to poke around the subject, what sort of things make you unhappy? In that period of being content, do you ever have days where you're not content? And are there particular things that trigger you to do so? Or do you find yourself always returning to that equilibrium at this point?
Now I do.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I'm always happy. It's not to say that every day is the best day of the world. But I think I'm just at a place where it would have to be a really bad day for it not to be okay. And even on my really bad days, not that I have many now, but I sort of know that there will possibly more be. Their bad days around the corner. It's not a case of you're just always on the up, and that's the case. I think it's just knowing how to handle them better. And the more skills I have in handling myself and my brain, because that's the biggest one, is how we're all our own worst enemies. And I'm brilliant at basically destroying myself from the inside. The moment I know I'm doing it, I can stop. Or most of the time I can stop. And say, actually, this is just a bad moment in time. Let it go. Sometimes don't even fight it, just let it go. And that's sort of the opposite to what you want to do, because when you're having a bad time, you want to fight and you want to push and you want to do everything else that's counterintuitive, really. Sometimes it's just stopping and going, cool, it's a bad day, let it go. Move on. And if that happens, generally I end up on the seafront, have a little wander, be grateful for where I live, grateful to see the sea, be out, fresh air.
Rub it in because I'm fucking missing that a lot.
Sorry. But okay, let's put it this way. Be outdoors, Aaron. Be outdoors. We live in a beautiful world.
Yeah, 100%. So here's a question that I've had for you as well, actually, and actually touching on those elements. how do you negotiate the difference between? Sometimes I think a big blocker in being happy is it can be um, uh, things that you feel like get in the way of your happiness, in the sense of things that you have to do in order to either clear some discomfort or to make a path forwards for yourself. And sometimes I found in my journey that can be a blocker to me being happy, especially at that moment.
Yeah.
And then perhaps maybe even for the foreseeable. And I hope that's not too cryptic, but essentially what I'm trying to get to is how do you negotiate the things that you have to do with the things that you want to do? So there could be parts of your business, for example, your business is a hugely fulfilling thing because it's your own thing, it's your own enterprise. And I know we've talked about that in the past, but how do you negotiate the stuff that you kind of want to be doing with the stuff that you have to be doing, and then where does that leave you in terms of your journey of being happy?
So yeah, there's a bit like I've just said, so there's always that sort of, there's good days, bad days, there's always something that could be better, there's always something that could be worse. And I look at it as, if it's leading me to where I need to be or want to be, then I have to either let it go or I have to sort it. I look at it someone explained this to me really well the other day, it's either going to add to my life or it's not. And if it's not going to add to my life, then it needs to go. And that sounds quite harsh. But if something is causing you more pain than not, then you have to find a way to get rid of that. Now, that might be from a business sense. Okay, I actually don't. I quite enjoy the accountant side of it. But say someone's not very good at accountancy and doesn't enjoy it, then give it to someone else. Don't beat yourself up and say, that's what I must do, it's my business. Give it to someone else, because someone else will enjoy it. By doing that, what you've done is you've released yourself of that. And therefore, but you've also taken care of it. Does that make sense? So not only have you released yourself, you've gone, cool, now I know it's fine, and I can do the things I like. So I look at it that way. And I think the other thing that I really do is I try not to give too much a meaning anymore.
How do you mean?
Because, and this is something that I've sort of worked on over the last couple of years. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
So the moment you give something a meaning, the moment that meaning then causes you to feel something about it. So if someone cuts you up on the way home from work, which generally happens, the moment you go, for fuck's sake, someone's cut me up, you've already gone from it's a really nice place to really angry because someone's done something that shouldn't have happened. But if you go, someone cut me up, I'm sure they didn't mean to, it really changes how you feel about it. Because all of a sudden you're not like, oh, so you're this, you're that. You're just going, I'm sure they didn't mean to. Mistakes happen. And if you can do that more than most, I think you're on that more even kill all the time. And it's something I try and work on yeah, there will be people who do things on purpose, but that only affects you if you allow it. So the less you can give a meaning to, the less it's going to affect you. It's not saying that actually there's lots that you want to give meaning to, because there's lots of nice things to enjoy. Yeah, if we go for a couple of beers or whatever, it's brilliant, I love it. But we're having a great time. But what I'm saying is, use the positives and not the negatives. Let the negatives go, and just go, it is what it is. Because you can't change it. Because most of the stuff we can't change anyway. Because it's out of our hands. Does that make sense? Completely.
And again, another nail on the head moment. That's great. So, and one thing you touched on at the beginning of that is about giving up or cutting out what you can and maybe outsourcing it or giving it elsewhere, where in terms of either life workload or be it business one. When's the right time to quit and move on, in your opinion? How do you know that maybe it would be a better job for you to sit still and persevere through that hardship, or move on? What's the negotiation there? What are your mechanisms for maybe deciding that?
I would say there's one of two. One, personally, would be my big-headedness or my stubbornness that is going to happen, and therefore, certainly from a work point of view, I can be a little bit arrogant, possibly a bit cocky, I can do that, it's fine. And it happens. But that's sort of me trusting myself, I know what I'm doing, and therefore it's going to happen, it's fine. And I think the flip side of that is time to walk away is when something is causing you more pain than it's actually giving you happiness or bringing you any form of enjoyment, I think you have to question why.
Okay.
Come on, Kat, you can just sit down. So I think if it starts to make you unhappy, then you have to question what it's bringing to you.
Hello.
Sorry about the
It's all good.
So, yeah, I think the moment it starts bringing you unhappiness or starts to be a problem, you have to ask yourself why it's a problem. And if it's something you can deal with, great, deal with it. If it's something that you can't, and that's maybe an external because it's involving somebody else, and somebody else has the answer or is driving that, then if someone else is driving it, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. So let it go. And that might mean you have to let it go for a day or let it go full time. I think it's just recognising those points, because a lot of stuff you can do yourself, but a lot of stuff is what people bring into our world as well. And if people are bringing it in, then it's easy to stop it. Well, that's how I look at it.
Wow. A lot to think about there. I feel like we could keep this conversation going for a couple of hours, but I'll end on this.
That'll be part 2.
Part 2, yeah.
In my bench.
Well, and a couple of drinks.
Yeah. That'll be the uncut sort of Jackass version.
That would be great.
No, it wouldn't. No, you're telling us not to. I might do, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a whole new world.
Could go viral.
Exactly, yeah.
So, last question I think I'll ask. Then.
Yeah.
Based on all of that, based on everything you've described, and I know you've touched on this question, or you've already kind of somewhat answered this question, based on everything that you've been through, based on your perspectives, would you say that you're happy at the moment?
Massively. Yeah, really good place. Which is sort of sad in 48. I don't know if really to say.
You really don't, by the way.
Brilliant. I know you so genuine. And I am genuinely happy in whatever's going to come is going to come. The kids are at a point where they're grown up, so I sort of feel like I've done that side of life, if that makes sense, and they're still alive and they're sort of semi-good human beings. In fact, I'm quite proud of them. So I feel like I've done a lot, and the only thing I think that's really crap is it's taken me about 48 years to get here and figure out I don't really need much. I'm quite a simple person, and actually I think we're all really simple and none of us need much. We just need to realise it.
So if you could go back to 21 and see yourself at 21, what would you have said to yourself?
Well,
I had no intention.
Where do you want to start? Oh, don't do that, don't do it. Definitely don't do it. What would I say at 21?
I had no intention of asking that question, but where you went to with that just seemed to make natural sense.
I would tell myself to invest in myself, figure out who you are as early as possible. Invest in finding out different stuff, doing different things. Because what I think, certainly from my point of view, I was led down a path, not by anyone, naturally by myself, because of where I'd come from. And that I grew up in that where you come from is where you're defined, and that's where you end up. And the one thing I've found out is actually you decide where you want to end up. You decide how that's going to work. And the more you can invest in yourself from an early age, I think the quicker you'll get there. So the more you can figure out early on, it sort of makes sense. And the more you can figure out early on, the better life you're going to have. That's the one thing I would be sort of saying to myself, forget what's gone on. That's not who you are. Figure out who you are, and then think about where you want to go. I'll do it that way.
Amazing. Ian, thank you for your time.
Quite right.
I am so elated to have my first piece of content done.
Excellent.
This is great. Now I can go in, edit it, and fail, and try and do good at that, and then eventually get this out. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and thank you for expanding on so many deep, personal, introspective, fascinating topics. Really appreciate it. We do this every time we get together, but it's kind of weird to do it in front of cameras now. But
it's fine.
And greatly appreciate it.
No, that's cool. I love that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.